Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 732. And today's date is August 2nd, 2015. And the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand out in Europe, the unemployment rate is continually going up in many different countries. Now, of course, the Eurozone is telling us that, everything is holding steady. We're at 11.1%. But we're seeing in many countries unemployment ticking up. And what's very interesting is that the Eurozone, the amount of unemployed people, it has risen by 31,000 in June. But when they do the calculation for the percentage of who's unemployed, it is steady at 11.1%. But what we're seeing is more and more people becoming unemployed. And they just haven't hit the mark where the percentage ticks up. But what we're seeing is a trend of more and more people unemployed. And if you look around the Eurozone, we see many of the youth unemployed in many of the countries. It is around 50% or more. And this is spreading. And we are seeing many red flags right now that just happened, which warns us of something. We see Puerto Rico. They're in the middle of a default right now because they're not going to be able to make their payments. We see the IMF talking about how they're not going to take part in the Greek talks about the bailout unless there's some type of debt write-off. We see Italy is going down the same exact path as Greece, but there's one big difference here. Italy is going to be a much larger problem for Europe because their economy is much larger. We see the Canadian economy is flashing red lights all over the place, saying that they are now entering a new recession. The housing boom and everything we've been seeing is coming to an end. The U.S. coal industry is completely imploding right now. And we see out in China, the Shanghai Composite Index has been down by 13%. And here in the United States, we see many corporations right now laying off people. We see revenue coming into these corporations decreasing. We see IBM. We see Caterpillar. We see Exxon, Chevron. They're laying off people. And we're seeing a lot of this. So we see major corporations laying off people. We see the revenue and sales completely declining month on month. And this is happening all over the place. This is not just in one area. And it is spreading quite quickly. And of course, Obama is out there and he is pushing the TPP as hard as he possibly can. And we know this is not for the people. It's kept in secret. It is for the corporations, the bankers. And we see there's 12 nations. They failed to reach a deal on the TPP. Even in Hawaii, they said, you know something? This TPP, it is not for us. So what are we seeing here? They're having a very difficult time pushing this TPP. People are looking into it. Even though they're keeping it a secret, other countries, people are looking into it saying, this does not work out for us. And the corporate powers, they don't care how they get this passed. They don't care because they know it is just for them. They know it will benefit them. They don't care about the people. They don't care about the governments. They only care about their own agenda right now. And again, I've said this many times, central bankers, corporate powers, no allegiance to a country or a people. It is to themselves. That is it. We see Congress did something very interesting. They took about 15 minutes and they passed a new bill that allows the Secretary of State to revoke Americans' passports with no due process. They did this on Tuesday. And we really didn't hear much about this. And the U.S. House of Representatives passed, via voice vote, the Foreign Terrorist Organization Passport Revocation Act of 2015. Its intent to authorize the revocation of denial of passports and passport cards to individuals affiliated with foreign terrorist organizations and for other purposes. And of course, those other purposes, they don't tell you what they are. The Secretary of State may refuse to issue a passport or revoke a previously issued one to any individual whom the Secretary has determined has aided, assisted, abetted, or otherwise helped an organization the Secretary has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. So all the Secretary has to do is say, yes, you are part of this, or we're doing this for other reasons. So they really don't have to have any reasons. There's no due process. Basically, it's a violation of all of your rights. H.R. 237, which is the FTO, and this will allow the Secretary of State, with unchecked authority, to prohibit individuals from traveling internationally. This is really what it means. So what are we seeing here? They're going to stop people from leaving the country. And if they decide, they could say, you're part of a terrorist organization. It's that easy without any proof or evidence. And if you notice, this is continually happening more and more, where they're pushing these new laws where they don't have to have proof of anything. And this is not a democracy. It's a violation of your rights, and it's really turning out to be basically a dictatorship. Whatever they say goes. Out in Kiev, we understand the court has ruled that the self-rule for Donbass is constitutional, and Poroshenko right now is still saying that there's still going to be no special status granted to these areas. And right now, the governments in Lugansk and Donetsk, they're saying that this doesn't live up to the Minsk II agreement, because what we're seeing here is that the president, under this new law that the amendments that he created, he can suspend these self-government bodies whenever he wants. So really, is this really self-governance if he has the control to do this? No, it is not. Now, out in Ukraine's Rivne region, which is the west portion of Ukraine, they are on the brink of war with the government in Kiev. Local authorities there are tired of the current government's criminal policy. They're saying there's corruption, and basically what they're saying is they're sick and tired of this puppet government that the United States have put into Ukraine. And this is on the west portion of Ukraine. This is not even in the southeastern area. So we can see many of the people in Ukraine are getting sick and tired of what is going on there. And we've been seeing this in Yemen, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, and all the people are doing the same, because eventually what happens is the people getting sick and tired of this puppet government, which was not elected by the people, which was installed in their government, and basically the governments destroy each one of the countries, and they create humanitarian crisis, they destroy the economies, and this is what we are seeing right now. And I notice in the corporate media, they're telling Russia to basically set up real negotiations to basically stop the war in the East. Because the Minsk II agreement is not a real ceasefire, it's not a real negotiation, and now I see that they're starting the propaganda that Russia is continually doing things, and they're pushing the agenda, because basically what they want to happen is they want to push another offensive, and we definitely see something is in the works at this point. We see out in the Middle East, the problems in Libya are continuing. The people's government in Tripoli, the elected government who took power, did not work with the UN. They bowed out of the peace negotiations because part of the deal was for them to give up their power and to allow the puppet government to come back into Tripoli and take over the power. And they said, no, absolutely not. So what do we see in the corporate media right now? We see the Islamic State now in Libya. They're flexing their muscles because guess what? The peace negotiations didn't work. And now they're on to the next level here. We see NATO members. They are busted for supporting the Islamic State. And we know the coalition forces, the United States, Israel, they're all supporting the Islamic State. It is the proxy army. And look at Turkey right now. They're bringing in the forces, setting up this safe zone. Because they're saying, yes, we're going after the Islamic State, but they're not. They're using this for many different agendas, and the main agenda is to go after Assad. They've been trying to get to Assad for a very long time. We see the Pentagon right now is saying that China, Russia, North Korea, and other countries are cyber attacking the United States, and the Pentagon wants to come up with a cyber weapon so strong that their very existence would deter foreign governments from attacking the United States. And right now, from all of this, we see why they want to do this, because we have to remember and think back when they said, okay, if there is an attack on the United States with cyber warfare, it is an act of war. And we can see they are following up on this, because we see that the propaganda was that China was hitting the United States. They stole 20 million Americans' personal information. And right now, Obama is out there, and he's saying that the U.S. must retaliate against China for this historic data breach. So they're basically pounding on the war drums. They're using this to say, yes, China is continually doing this. And Clapper came out and said, he predicted that the number and sophistication of hacking aimed at the United States would only get worse as time goes on. And we see why the Pentagon is sitting out there saying we need to come up with some type of weapon. Now, all of this is being done for one reason and one reason only. It's to get us into war. It's a setup. Remember, they've been provoking China out in the South China Sea. They've been provoking Russia. They provoke North Korea, and none of these nations have done anything. So what do they have to do? They have to create it. They have to make it look like they're attacking. The question is, what in the world and why would China steal this information? Personal information on people. To destroy what? And also, it was a surface attack. Do you really think a sophisticated actor would come in and leave footprints of where they are? Do you know how easy it is to hide and mask where the attacks are coming from? Well, that's what they would do. They would not do it from their country. It would be done from some other location. You would not know it was them if it was a true and real cyber attack. And we see that at this point, they are continually pushing the idea, because how do you prove that it actually came from this country? It's a perfect setup if you really think about it. Because all the government has to do is say, we were cyber attacked, and point at a country. And all they have to do is maybe bring down one power grid in a certain area and say this was China, this was Russia. All they have to do is bring down 2 or 3 different banks and say, yes, it was them, and now we have to lock down the banks. That's all it would take. And we see we are headed in that direction. And what they're looking to do is they're looking to create something to get through China's firewall. Now, why are they trying to do all this? Well, we have to remember that the yuan/renminbi is looking to become a reserve currency. The IMF is looking at this, and this is coming up this fall. We're getting closer and closer to this time period. And eventually, China most likely will back this currency with gold. And again, I said this many times, the United States government central bankers do not want this to happen. Now, the Homeland Security, they are warning now police agencies to be on the lookout for drones. And they're saying that these people out in the United States could be flying drones, and they could be attacking people with the drones. They have no evidence that anyone is actually really doing this. They're just giving this as a warning. They're saying adversaries could use these drones to advance terrorist and criminal activities. But there's no threats or any information that this is actually happening. So what does this tell us? This tells us they have something in the works to show that, yes, people are using drones, and this most likely will be a false flag event. We're moving into a time period where the economy is completely falling apart, and now they're ramping up this next event. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.